All right, Whovians, welcome back to the Who Universe 20 Years of New Who celebration. We are now on the 10th series of New Who. Peter Capaldi's last year as the 12th Doctor. Of course, he's got a new companion played by Pearl Mackie, who obviously plays the Bill Potts, and Noel Dole, who is Matt Lucas's character, also joining the Doctor on the adventures across time and space during this series. And also, we also had to say goodbye to Noel Dole as well because Noel Dole would not return for Peter Capaldi's final episode. Twice Upon a Time, whilst Pearl Mackie did. So, opportunity to say farewell to the basically building up to the 12th Doctor's departure and Peter Capaldi's departure that year in that year's Christmas special, which would have been the final curtain call for Peter Capaldi's. Without further ado, let's take a look at some of my favorite episodes in this series, shall we? The first episode I enjoyed, obviously, Pilot. I love how they introduced Pearl Mackie. The whole I think I just love the fact that we have this whole Doctor's a teacher. Pearl Mac and Bill Potts is one of his students. And he gets curious about Bill Potts. I guess, yeah, he gets a bit curious about Bill Potts, her sort of interest in wanting to be a part of the class and wanting to be a part of his lessons. Essentially, basically join in. Essentially, he wanted to be a part. So it was up for. So obviously the Doctor was a bit curious Potts's involvement to want to help be a part, and then on top of that and then also it was really interesting because we had this sort of friend of Bill Potts where she met this friend in the night. They had this sort of eye to eye contact, but then eventually she was kidnapped by some kind of like entity that was basically showing up in form of a water in form of like a puddle, which shows that essentially shows that would eventually let basically whoever was controlling this girl to come out and basically show themselves. And anywhere the Doctor went, they would find a way to get through a mirror just to be able to. But yes, so the fact that we had this whole sort of pilot thing where she was kind of wet from water, some kind of water that was kind of making her come out of like reflections. It was we never really understood who this alien was. So it was we never really had a full backstory of what this enemy was, but essentially followed Bill Potts because it liked Bill Potts clearly. Yeah, it even transformed itself into a Dalek when the Doctor brought it to Skaro, and it became a Dalek for a bit, which was really interesting. But obviously, she went away. She interacted with Bill Potts. This built up the adventures for Bill Potts and the Doctor, and along with Noel Dell to get him. So that was a really good story. The pilot. I also love Thin Ice. That whole idea of what I love the fact that in Thin Ice we have this whole storyline of like being frozen in ice, and they had this sort of frozen market on the seafront as the ice was freezing. Essentially, that was really cool that there was a storyline about like a real event years ago in London where they had this like frozen market on the ice or something. It was sort of history stuff that got involved in that story. And then another story that was also another critical story that was huge was Oxygen. The fact that we had the Doctor essentially go into the adventure with a spacesuit. He would eventually, as we saw throughout the series, he have this sort of problem where he couldn't see where to go. He had no way of knowing where things were because he couldn't really see anything because of the events of Oxygen. So as we get to the pyramid at the end of the world, of course, Bill Potts made a decision to essentially the world a lie just so the Doctor can see again. She made that decision because she didn't want the Doctor to go blind, like I said, so that the Doctor could be able to see and get himself out of the situation, which is essentially what Bill Potts did. But the Doctor realizes by her doing that a consequence, which was that the whole of Britain was believing a lie as part of the Lie of the Land. But either way, Oxygen was a very critical story with that whole the Doctor being blind deal for the episode for sure. And then of course we have the Empress of Mars. I do love the Empress of Mars, the whole Ice Warrior. It was really cool to to see the sort of like a female version of the Ice Warrior, considering the fact that we had this new type of Ice Warrior that finally got introduced as part of the Doctor's trip to Mars to meet the Ice Warriors again. So that was really cool. I mean, I do love the Ice Warriors stories that Mark Gatiss did here. It was great to see the Ice Warriors getting involved in the series, so that was nice. And then really the last episode, the last two episodes I enjoyed were The World Enough in Time, and was a great two-parter because, well, even though they spoiled the return of yes, there would have been the surprise element of John Simm returning in World Enough in Time, but they spoilt it a bit early through leaks and stuff there. John Simm's return got spoiled, but either way, the surprise element still got people. The fact that John Simm basically acts like this sort of, I guess, this sort of old style side, I guess this sort of just ordinary person, and then he basically hid himself as the former prime, and obviously as the face of the former prime minister. Missy was shocked to find out that the fact that the master, John Simm's master, finally returned into Doctor Who, and it was really cool to have two masters in one story, which was really nice. And then the fact that the Doctor had to deal with two masters at once, which is crazy, isn't it? To think that there were two masters coming into Doctor Who, which was really nice setup for Peter Capaldi's final series. And then the fact that obviously Bill Potts becoming a Cyberman after being shot from whoever shot her in the because somebody shot her in the stomach. She was nearly about to die. John Simm's master essentially turned her into a Cyberman, therefore she finally became a Cyberman. She was essentially a Cyberman, even though she believes that part of her still exists, even though she acts like a Cyberman pretty much. But yeah, so that was a very, and then of course the fact Bill Potts would then leave the Cyberman body, disguising herself as and it all comes back full circle as well, with the girl that she met at the start of the series coming back to her, bring the Doctor back to the TARDIS. We find out that she knows how to control the TARDIS, and she controlled the TARDIS so that her and Bill Potts could go to the sunset. But then the TARDIS tries to wake up the Doctor, because the Doctor basically put himself through danger by exploding buildings and stuff just to save the people and battle the Cybermen, which obviously backfired when the Cybermen shot. The Doctor basically was using a bit of the regeneration energy to attack the Cybermen, which luckily defeated them, but then he realized because he took a shot from the Cybermen and he knew that his time was basically up. What was also really fitting was the fact that we saw a scene John Simm's master and Missy, the fact that Missy gave a cut to John Simm's master. Therefore, John Simm's master ends up blasting Missy, ends up basically falling to her death, and we don't know if she survived or not. We don't know, but at least we knew that John Simm's master, but he was about to regenerate into some other person. We didn't know who he was regenerated into. Most of us are wondering if he did regenerate master we see in Jodie Whittaker's version. Maybe that's who John Simm became. We'll have to wait and see, but I have a sneaky suspicion that's who John Simm regenerated into. Hopefully find out at some point whether that was indeed the case. That was essentially Series 10, some of my favourite episodes from Peter Capaldi's last year as the 12th Doctor, before he finally bowed out during that year's Christmas special as his final curtain call for the Doctor Who, and before they finally wrapped him and began this whole journey of Jodie Whittaker coming the first ever female version of the Doctor to be cast for the role. Make sure to like and subscribe. Let me know your favourite episodes of Series 10, and we're going to move forward into Series 11 shortly, and we'll into next week when we're going to have the chance to look back at Jodie Whittaker's 3 years as the Doctor, starting with her very first series, Series 11, which had some good stuff, bright spots, but then it had not such great stuff. There was definitely some good episodes that came out of Jodie's first year as the Doctor. So make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you. See you then.